As great as the Nintendo Switch is, one of its biggest soft spots is the fact that for every great game you could get at a low price, there's at least 47 others that are way too expensive. The initial reason for this is because the Switch's game cards that hold more than 8 GB cost more than a standard Blu-ray. And to be honest, I think the Switch tax is understandable in some cases, and I don't really mind paying extra for portability. After all, portable and console versions of the same game used to sell separately for much more money and far less convenience. However, the problem lies with companies who are just taking advantage of the public's understanding that games cost a little bit more on Nintendo's hybrid that could. And while there were a small handful of games that cost more for a legitimate reason, we've now reached a point where most expensive Switch games only cost so much because companies know we're going to pay the price in the beginning. Which games are the worst offenders? Well, to be blunt, there's way too many to talk about in one video. So lay back in your YouTube viewing chair, take a load off, call the fire department in case this video is too hot for your computer, press the subscribe button if you haven't already, and allow me, Forbes 2-time Horse Jockey of the Year Cameron, to tell you the 11 most overpriced games on the Nintendo Switch. Number 11. Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. Just because this is one of my favorite games of all time, it doesn't mean that it's not overpriced on the Nintendo Switch. And before you assume this video is going to be all about Wii U ports, just know that this is the only one that actually made the cut. Not because I'm a Nintendo fan man or anything, but there's a lot of games I had to leave off this list, and generally speaking, I think most of the Wii U games deserve a second chance at having a run. So why am I including Tropical Freeze? Well, because it's one thing to release a port at the same price as the previous console, but to re-release the game without much added to it aside from an easy mode for $10 more is flat out ridiculous. I honestly think Nintendo straight up forgot the game was originally $50 on the Wii U. Because even then it was kind of weird for them to release a full game for less than retail, even if it was just a 2D platformer. And the $10 difference really wouldn't be that big of a deal to me since the game is portable now, I guess. But to take the $20 digital version off the Wii U Z shop's a flat out dick move that the above average sized N ought to be ashamed of. Number 10. Doom and Wolfenstein 2. I really didn't want to put these games on here. I never played Doom on the PS4 or Xbox One, but I got the Switch version to support Bethesda because it seemed like something I'd like. And I actually liked it so much that I decided I'd get Wolfenstein 2 whenever that came to the Switch as well. But then I saw that dreaded label on the box and decided to get the better version of the game that was only a third of the price on the PS4, so yeah, sorry Bethesda. I know the Switch version's portable, but $40 is pretty steep. And even though I bought the Switch version of Doom, it's the exact same situation with that game as well. I always say graphics are less important now than ever before, and I do stand by that. But unlike the rest of this list, Bethesda did have to put a considerable amount of work into these games to get them running on the Switch, and to fit them on the more expensive cartridges. So I'd say the Switch tax was justified here, and I really don't think Bethesda was trying to take advantage of it. But if you already know you're not going to play the game portably, then I really can't recommend that you pay more for less. Number 9. Final Fantasy IX. As soon as Final Fantasy IX came out for the Nintendo Switch right after a Nintendo Direct, I immediately bought it without thinking to show support for a game that I considered to be underrated. Sadly though, I wish I thought things through a bit more, because after looking at the price I literally regretted my purchase immediately, especially since I don't plan to play it anytime soon. Like I said, the game's great, and while it's pretty much a port of the mobile version, I can't say that it doesn't look nice on the Switch. And I'd have left this game off the list entirely had it not been for one key factor, and that's the fact that instead of charging $20 for this game, they thought it'd be a good idea to charge $21, which just doesn't make any friggin' sense. It's like someone at Square suggested 20 and everyone said okay, but then their CEO, Shigeo Takuda, got out of the shower and said, nah, fuck it, $21. Come on now, Shigeo, stop being a dick. Number 8. 1-2 Switch. This game's a fine tech demo for the Switch, but so is Wii Sports, and that game didn't cost $50 goddamn. Plus, that was a pack-in for the Wii, just like 1-2 Switch should have been with the, well, Switch. Wii Sports did eventually get a physical release for $20, and I know 1-2 Switch is a hell of a lot more complicated than that game, but still, this is not the kind of game that should cost $50. I know it's a launch game that sold over 2 million copies so far, but when the Switch first came out, fans were starving for games other than Breath of the Wild, so I think 1-2 Switch was really just in the right place at the right time. Again though, I'm not saying 1-2 Switch is a bad game, because it's really not, but if you're thinking about buying it, then do yourself a favor and just get Snipper Clips instead. Number 7, 6, and 5. Resident Evil 0, 1, and 4. Fans rejoiced all over the internet when these games were announced for the Switch, but given Capcom's awful track record with the platform, I was that crazy skeptic trying to warn everybody of the impending tomfoolery. And wouldn't you know it, the games are $30 on the Switch while they're only $20 on other consoles. But at least the Origins bundle with Resident Evils 1 and 2 is getting a physical, so I'm okay with the price increase, I guess. After all, these HD remakes are pushing 16 gigabytes each, so fitting both games on a 32 gigabyte cartridge must cost a lot more, right? Well, yeah, I wouldn't mind a Switch tax if that were the case. But Or there's no way a 32GB cartridge costs $20 more to make than even an 8GB cartridge. I think Capcom's just charging $60 for the physical so they could justify selling each game for $30 on the eShop. After all, retailers get mad when digital games are cheaper than what they have in the stores. So by using the Switch tax as an excuse for the physicals to be $20 extra, it's much easier to get away with jacking the digital price up. But the worst part about it all is that the physical copy's not even gonna have both games. That's right, Capcom's doing their patented 50-50 bullshit by putting one game on a cartridge with a download code for the other, which I'm sure Capcom's aware is something everyone hates, but the batch of physicals will eventually sell regardless. Meanwhile, the games are going to be overpriced on the eShop for a long time to come if people cave and buy them anyway, which I'm sure is going to end up happening, unfortunately. And Capcom's treatment of the Switch is really sad, because the people who make games at Capcom are amazing. It's just the business side that I really hate. Number 4. Turok.
What is your name?
I am
It doesn't matter what your name is!
After over 2 years of waiting for 64 games to hit the Switch, we're finally getting Turok 1 and 2, which is weird, because those games weren't really that great 20 years ago. Oh well, maybe we should just buy these anyway to prove to Nintendo we want 64 games on the Switch. Is what I would have said if these games were like $5 or $10. But nope, Turok 1's gonna be $20. I'm not 100% sure on the price of Turok 2 yet, but I'm assuming that's also gonna be $20 as well. And if that's the case, then Turok 1 deserves to be here more than 2 since it aged even worse. But you know what, maybe I'm just overreacting about the price. I mean, the game does let you run, jump, or climb in any direction in a full 3D world. Plus, every enemy behaves uniquely, and there's advanced interactive backgrounds, and wait a minute! This game's description just copied the back of the original game's box word for word. Common sense tells me that we're trying to be nostalgic, but given the fact that this game's low resolution makes it look copy and pasted, I've gotta say the description comes off as a red flag. It's almost like someone just figured out they had the rights to these games and said, frig it, sell it on that Nintendo thing for like $20. I was pretty surprised to see that there's actually a lot of people that are excited for these games. And if you're one of those people, then more power to you, I guess. But I just hope you keep your expectations in check, because anyone who doesn't's in for a rude awakening. Number 3. Starlink. The price for this game may have dropped in recent memory, but this game was initially expensive as hell if you got the Starship packs. Starlink wasn't a home run in terms of sales, but within a few months it sold over 500,000 copies on the Switch. And much like 1-2 Switch, this game sold as well as it did because it was in the right place at the right time. Because normally people wouldn't be that interested in a bland-ass space shooter with bland characters. And I'm not saying this game's the worst thing ever or anything, but if you think I'm being too harsh with this game, then just look at its sales on the PS4 or Xbox One. I think it's pretty obvious that the only reason this game sold as well as it did is because they tossed Star Fox in there. And after the Switch's 10-month draw to 2018, there was even more people willing to pretend it was a real Star Fox game. If you ask me though, pretending Starlink's a Star Fox game would be like not seeing your husband or wife for a long time and then hiring a prostitute with their mask on. And while I'm sure there's a lot of people who had fun with this game, I'd imagine there's many others who regret being fooled by Ubisoft, especially if they got the Starship packs. Number 2. Nintendo Labo. I almost feel bad that I'm still picking on Labo because it's just way too easy, but this was supposed to carry the Switch's first half of 2018, and since most people didn't end up caring about it, it was a pretty rough year for all 4 Switch owners who also owned a Wii U. Labo didn't exactly fail, but its sales didn't justify the overnight billion-dollar increase in Nintendo stocks either. Long story short, the reason Labo underperformed is because it came out 20 years too late. Most of the game's initial hype was from adults who imagined how much they would have enjoyed it as a kid, but the problem with that is that most of them didn't have kids themselves. But in 2019, most kids don't feel like bothering with all the assembly and cleanup just to play a video game that was considered mediocre at best. Especially when it costs up to $20 more than a standard game depending on which kit you're thinking about. I usually try looking at the bright side whenever Nintendo does weird shit. I mean, after all, I only included one Wii U port on this list, but I've got to call things like I see it, and hopefully Nintendo just takes the L and moves away from Labo. Wait, what's this?
Can't say I didn't warn ya. Right, get out, you greasy pedophile, because we don't want to see you in here. Yes.
Number 1. Every shovelware game. Literally all of them, even if they're priced at less than $1. Why? Because the majority of games on the Switch's eShop are just clutter. And even the games that are cheaper than A Night with My Dad are still a waste of time. I mean, whatever happened to the seal of quality? The whole reason that was invented in the first place was to prevent oversaturation. So what the hell, Nintendo? Is nothing sacred anymore? If you put a gun up my ass and made me choose which shovelware game was the worst though, it'd easily be Mujo. Not only is it originally a free-to-play mobile game, but they didn't even alter it for the Switch. It was pretty much just copy and paste it over, and instead of being a free free-to-play game, it's $10 with the microtransactions. Since people are buying a lot of the games that I mentioned, though, you might argue that overpricing games now and lowering them later is a good business move. And, well, yeah, it totally is. And to be honest, if people are willing to pay these prices, then you really can't fault the developers. Now, we've all got to look in the mirror for this one, because when we accept these ridiculous terms, we're just telling publishers it's okay to take another inch of the consumer's power. It'd be like giving the Loch Ness Monster tree Fiddy and getting mad when he keeps coming back asking for more. Consumers started giving away power when they started buying DLC that used to be unlockable via gameplay. Then, before we knew it, DLC that was already on the disc was being sold to us online. And then a little later on, physical games were being printed before they were finished, with the rest of the game being downloaded at launch. And now we have publishers abusing the hell out of the Switch tax. And the main reason they're doing this is because we're allowing them to. I know video games are still cheaper now than ever before, but there's way more people playing games as well. And if we the consumer keep giving more and more of our power up, then we're gonna be frigged before too long. I'm guilty of buying overpriced Switch games as well. I mean, I did buy 2.5 games that are on this list, and even a few others that didn't make the cut. But the Switch tax is getting out of hand in 2019, and we all need to do our part and resist as many of these overpriced games as possible, because I'm sure they're gonna go on sale eventually. And contrary to what I'm sure a few of the comments are gonna say, not supporting third parties on the Switch wouldn't drive them away from the platform, because most of these overpriced games on the Switch would still be profitable if they were cheaper. So if everybody could band together and stop buying these overpriced games, then I think everybody will win in the long run. But two people who always win in the long run are today's patrons of the day, Stiff Eye Lens and El Gringo. If you want to join these badasses, then consider supporting this channel on Patreon for loot boxes and silly rewards in the mail, or check the merch store out for t-shirts and mugs. And if you want to make cameos in videos, then just send us pictures of videos of you rocking the merch doing whatever you want. What overpriced games did I miss though, because there's definitely a lot I left off this list. If you can think of any that deserve a spot in this list more, then let me know what you think in the comments below, and as always, I'll pin whatever I find most entertaining or intriguing. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already to prove to the world how big of a badass you are. And if you like and share this video, it really goes a long way to help this channel grow. My name's Cameron, and I'll see you next time.
So I want to say thank you to your loyalty. Thank you for your support.